All right, so that's setting up. Once we're live, I'll exit out. Okay, we're live now. All right, so let's exit out of this browser here. All right, shalom, everyone. I'm Brother Doug, as always, with the Waken by Yahuwah Assembly. We got Sister Milka with us, Brother Yahusha, Brother Joshua. We got Brother Masha, Sister Sadia. We got Ronnie, Sister Ronnie also joining us as a guest, and we have Sister Josie here. So we're going to be doing today our regular book by book, chapter by chapter readings. As always, I'm going to be reading from my LXX here. Okay, so the net New English translation of the Septuagint, which is very modern. If we got any brothers out there, I know that have been asking about it. Brother Ray, if you're watching, this is a really good one for you to get when it's not Sabbath. I really recommend it. It's not that expensive. And it's modern English, very modern English for those that don't like the King's English and all that. It's a very decent one in my opinion. If you want to look into the Septuagint, I've only found like one or two verses that I don't look at favorably in this translation so far. So, all right. Okay, so we left off at chapter 9. So let's get chapter 10 here of Exodus. Okay, so chapter 10. Here we go. Then Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, let me get it.
Go into Pharaoh, for I made his heart and of his intendants heavy, in order that one after another these signs might come upon them, that you may recount in the ears of your children and the children of your children how I mocked the Egyptians, and my signs that I did among them. And you will know that I am Yahuwah. Then Moshe and Aaron went in before Pharaoh and said to him, this is what Yahuwah, the Elohim of the Hebrews, says. For how long are you unwilling to respect me? Send away my people so that they may serve me. But if you're not willing to send away my people, look, I am, look, I am bringing during this hour tomorrow a grasshopper swarm upon all your borders, and it shall cover the face of the land, and you will not be able to see the land, and it shall devour all the rest that remains that the hail left for you, and it shall devour every tree that grows for you on the land, and your house and the houses of your intendants. And all the houses in the land of Egypt shall be filled with something that your fathers or their grandfathers have never seen. From the day when they came on the land until this day. And Moshe turned away and went out from Pharaoh. Then the attendants of Pharaoh said to him, for how long will this be a stumbling block for us? Send away the people so that they may serve Yahuwah their Elohim. Or do you will to know that Egypt lies in ruins? And they brought back both Moshe and Aaron to Pharaoh, and he said to them, go, serve Yahuwah your Elohim, but who are those that are going? And Moshe says, with the young and the old, we will go, and with our sons and our daughters, sheep and cattle, for it is Yahuwah our Elohim's feast. And he said to them, let Yahuwah so be with you according as I send you. I should not also send your chattels, should I? Take note that wickedness lies before you, not so, but let the men go, and you serve Yahuwah. For this you yourselves are asking. Then they thrust them out from the presence of Pharaoh. Then Yahuwah said to Moshe, stretch out the hand on the land of Egypt, and let the grasshopper come up on the land, and it will devour all the herbage of the land and all the fruit of the trees which the hail left behind. And Moshe lifted up the rod towards heaven. And Yahuwah brought up a south wind upon the land, that the whole day and the whole night the morning came, and the south wind took up the grasshopper and brought it up onto the land of Egypt, and a great many settled on all the borders of Egypt. A grasshopper such as this had not occurred before it, and after there shall not be such. And it covered the face of the land, and the land was ruined, and it devoured all the herbage of the land and all the fruit of the trees which was left from the hail. Nothing green was left on the trees and on all the herbage of the plain in the whole land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh hastened to summon Moshe and Aaron, saying, I have sinned before Yahuwah your Elohim and against you. Therefore, bear with my sin now again, and pray to Yahuwah your Elohim, and let him take away from me this death. So Moshe went out from Pharaoh and prayed to Yahuwah, and Yahuwah turned a violent wind from the sea, and it took up the grasshopper and threw it into the Red Sea, and not one grasshopper was left in the whole land of Egypt. And Yahuwah hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not send away the sons of Yasharal. Then Yahuwah said to Moshe, stretch out the hand towards heaven, and let there be darkness over the land of Egypt, palpable darkness. So Moshe stretched out the hand toward heaven, and there was darkness, gloom, hurricane on all the land of Egypt for 3 days, and no one saw his brother, and no one rose up from his bed for 3 days. But for all the sons of Yashreel, there was light in all places where they were dwelling. And Pharaoh summoned Moshe and Aaron, saying, go, serve Yahuwah your Elohim, only leave behind the sheep and cattle, and let your chattels, or I guess chattels would be livestock, or what would chattels be? Is that the children he's talking about? What does it say yours in that verse? What is he saying to depart with them?
Okay, what exactly is the verse, honey?
Verse 24, then to verse 24.
Then Pharaoh summoned Moshe and said, go worship Yahuwah. Even your women and children may go with you. Only leave your flocks and herds.
Okay. So the women and children is the chattels. Okay. Yeah, that's a little weird word there in the English. Okay. And Moshe said, but you also will give us whole burnt offerings and sacrifices that we shall make to Yahuwah our Elohim, and our animals will go with us. We shall not leave behind a hoof. For from them we shall take to serve Yahuwah our Elohim, but we do not know how we should worship Yahuwah our Elohim until we get there. But Yahuwah hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he was unwilling to send them away. And Pharaoh says, depart from me, watch out that yet again you see my face. Now on, whatever day you should appear to me, you shall die. Then Moshe says, you have spoken, I shall no longer appear to you in person. I love how Moshe completely ignored the fact Pharaoh said, if you go to me again, you're going to die. Moshe just completely ignored that. He's like, yeah, all right. Yeah, you said it right. I'm not going to see your face again. He's ignoring him. He's like, yeah, whatever, bud, whatever. Keep making your threats.
Yeah.
Go ahead, brother Yahusha.
On that same point, let's see. Give me a second.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, he's thinking, I just say, what we see here is a real example of we don't compromise. We do not take a compromise with anyone concerning Yahuwah. That's my statement.
Yeah.
Okay, so where he says, okay, verse 10, on that same point, he says, starting in verse 7, where they tell him, how long shall this be a snare to us? And then you get to verse 10. He said to them, so let Yahuwah be with you, as I will send you away. Must I send away your little ones? Also beware, for evil is before you. That word evil in the Hebrew is ra. So beware for rise before you. Uh, just interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, they probably had the concept that their deity was going to destroy them. I wonder if that's why Yahuwah sent the destroyer
Mm.
to kill the firstborn, to kind of make a point. Like, yeah, the God you worship serves me, by the way. Just to let you know, he's my first stupid little servant. So yeah, you can send quote unquote Ra after them. I'm gonna use Ra against your own firstborn, by the way.
Even with this, like, even though I don't like the Masoretic Hebrew, I don't like the Masoretic text. It just ultimately it shows like Yahuwah in control of everything. Because I mean, there's no way that you could have beware for evil is before you and then have that word being raw. Know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. No, it definitely helps with certain words. It helps show us, at least give us a decent I guess you could say, link back to the original Hebrew. That's one positive the Masoretic does. It kind of gives us a hint back to the original Hebrew. But yeah, for the most part, I don't find anything that too different with the Masoretic here, so it's not that bad. If you are reading from a Masoretic text in this chapter, you're not going to see too much difference. I mean, you'll see a little bit of word difference, but that's about it. You still see Yahuwah hardening Pharaoh's heart, whatever version you're reading. You're still going to see the predestination there, the election to destruction for Pharaoh, which, by the way, we did an expose last night of a book that's not scripture that claims Pharaoh would have survived and somehow became a king of Nineveh, which is ridiculous in my opinion. But anyway, but yeah, we clearly see Yahuwah's purpose for Pharaoh is to be a vessel of destruction. And he's constantly hardening his heart. He's not letting him repent. He's hardening his heart so that these plagues are coming upon the Egyptians. That's like the whole purpose of what
Right.
he's doing with Pharaoh here. And so, but I do find it interesting though that Masha, just ignores Pharaoh. He's like, yeah, you won't see me again. You're right. You spoken well. You won't see my face again. So yeah, I like what my mom touched on, the whole don't be afraid of man, don't have fear of man, don't compromise. We see Masha doing this. We see him saying, well, no, we are going to take our livestock with us because we're going to need to sacrifice to Yahuwah. So, Pharaoh tries to finagle, try to get them to leave their livestock in Egypt. No. So you see a lot of Pharaoh's not really like wholeheartedly trying to repent. We see him trying to half-heartedly repent there and say, please pray for me to Yahuwah, but obviously his heart's not in it.
You really have to have a hardened heart to see everything that's going on and still be doing what you're doing. That's pretty sad, man.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. Yeah. So yeah, we don't know much about this Pharaoh. He comes on the scene. He's kind of like Pope Francis in a way. Kind of comes on the scene out of nowhere. You don't really know much about the guy, what his ethnicity might be. He's just kind of like, he's out of nowhere. He becomes Pharaoh. A couple generations after the Pharaoh of Joseph's time would have died. You don't really know much about this guy. It seems like Yahuwah's not really giving him a chance to repent. You can only wonder what he did in his early life that caused Yahuwah just to hand him over. Or if Yahuwah always predestined him to be like this. But it's kind of interesting. I do want to look more into what we were talking about last night about who founded Assyria, because even according to historians, there's no clear-cut answer between Nimrod or the Asher guy, the original Asher. So I want to look more into that, because one of the claims is that supposedly the person Asher, who was a descendant of Seth in Genesis 10, where we get the name Assyria from, the guy. Supposedly he was a righteous descendant of Seth, which again the text doesn't tell you. So that's assumption. But that he would be righteous and that he found Assyria to get away from the Tower of Babel, supposedly. And there's all this legend and theories out there on both sides, but it would be interesting to find any historical evidence for either argument. Because if it is, that means if there's any truth to that, that means that Assyria originally was a righteous nation and they became wicked somehow. I could kind of figure how they became wicked, because I do believe later on Nimrod takes over Assyria. That's why it's called the land of Nimrod in Micah 5. So I do believe at some point in time, Asher might have gotten killed and Nimrod took over his empire, hypothetically speaking. So if it's true that Asher found Assyria, I can see how it became a wicked nation. Definitely. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I just found it interesting. I was trying to do some research last night. I couldn't find really a consensus for either argument. They kept making, just arguments based on translations and stuff like that. No real history. So, but anyway. So mom, would you like to read? Oh, go ahead, brother Joshua, if you wanted to add anything.
I don't think my hand is up.
Oh, okay. I don't know if you were about to say something. That's okay.
No.
All right. Go ahead, Mom.
Okay, chapter 11. Now Yahuwah had said to Moshe, I will bring one more plague on Pharaoh and on Egypt. After that, he will let you go from here. And when he does, he will drive you out completely. Tell the people that men and women alike are to ask their neighbors for articles of silver and gold. Yahuwah made the Egyptians favorably disposed toward the people, and Moshe himself was highly regarded in Egypt by Pharaoh's officials and by the people. So Moshe said, this is what Yahuwah says. About midnight, I will go throughout Egypt. Every firstborn son in Egypt will die, from the firstborn son of Pharaoh, who sits on the throne, to the firstborn son of the slave girl, who is at her handmill, and all the firstborn of the cattle as well. There will be loud wailing throughout Egypt, worse than there has ever been or ever will be again. But among the Israelites, not a dog will bark at any man or animal. Then you will know that Yahuwah makes a distinction between Egypt and Israel. And all these officials of yours will come to me, bowing down before me and saying, go, you and all the people who follow you. After that, I will leave. Then Moshe, hot with anger, left Pharaoh. Yahuwah had said to Moshe, Pharaoh will refuse to listen to you, so that my wonders may be multiplied in Egypt. Moshe and Aaron performed all these wonders before Pharaoh, but Yahuwah hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let the Israelites go out of his country.
Mm-hmm. So what I like here is the especially in the Septuagint, it says, I will make great distinction. So Yahuwah is making it clear he's going to make great distinction between his people and Pharaoh's people. So what you kind of got to understand is a little bit of the not the history, but a little bit of the culture of Egypt. Pharaohs thought themselves to be gods. They thought themselves to be the representative of whatever god they worshipped on earth. They were kind of like a pope, because the popes are like vicar, vicar Philadelphia or whatever, substitute for Christ on earth, whatever. So the pharaohs are kind of similar to that. So what Yahuwah is really saying is, I'm going to make great distinction between my people and Ra's people or Satan's people. That's really what he's saying. It's like the wheat and the tares. It's like, listen, the tares are going to get uprooted, thrown in the furnace. They're going to get destroyed. My wheat are going to be protected.
Go ahead, brother Yahusha.
On that same point, that's been something that has been like heavily on my mind lately. Um, we see we see these miracles being performed by Masha, that point to Yahuwah, but then we see these same things being performed by the sorcerers of Pharaoh. Um, we see the same example, kind of later on with the prophets of Baal versus Yahuwah. When you read the story of Eliyahu, um, and even to this day, we see the same example. Like we see these miracles, signs, and wonders being performed in Christianity, where people are being healed, people are being supposedly delivered of spirits. Um, but there's going to come a time where Yahuwah says enough, he's going to make a distinction. He's going to show that even though I have allowed them to perform these certain miracle signs and wonders, that's not me. You know what I mean? Um, I don't know. That's what that brings me to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like you have Satan's false miracles of Revelations 11 and all that, right? So you have this false power. Yahuwah allowing Satan to have a certain amount of power to do false signs, lying wonders, and all that, false miracles for all intents purposes. So I'm pretty sure he allows Janus and Jambres to do what they're going to do by, them, obviously the sorcerers and the magicians in reality make covenants with Satan. That's how they're able to do those things. So Yahuwah is allowing Satan to help them out. But at the same time, like you said, Yahuwah is going to make a distinction. He's going to show who really is the true Almighty, and he's going to even show a distinction between magic and the supernatural nature of Yahuwah. Yahuwah's miracles don't come from sorcery; they come from himself. And so I think that's what
ultimately,
also.
they always point back to Yahuwah. Granted, we do see, people being healed. We do see signs, miracles, and wonders, but are they pointing back to Yahuwah? Are they pointing back to the Torah? Do they lead you to? This was something that when and I would share with them, like I've seen a lot of people be delivered of spirits. I've seen a lot of healings. I've seen a lot of miracles. And Jeff brought up to me one time, like, okay, well, what you saw, did it lead those people to obedience to the Torah? And I think that's ultimately what it boils down to. We can see all these kind of things, but does it lead you to obedience to the Torah? Does it lead you to Yahusha?
Yep.
So it's kind of like similar to what Paul talks about. Certain people in the end times, they will have a form of righteousness but not denying the power thereof. And it's kind of like the false miracles. They seem to be helping people, right? They seem to be healing people, but it denies the power thereof. It denies Yahuwah. It denies the source. And that's how it's a false miracle. And also Yahuwah, we're going to see later on how Yahuwah, with a lot of these plagues, how these Egyptian magicians, they try to copy it, but then they end up hurting themselves even more. It's like they can't heal themselves. The power that the source that the Egyptians get, these diviners get their power from, they can only destroy, they can't heal. That's another I would say that's another sign that it's where the source of where they're getting their power from is not from the Father, because quite frankly, every time you'll see every plague, they're just copying a plague. They're copying destruction. They're not able to stop it. They're not able to reverse it, and heal the land or what have it. Go ahead, brother.
I would say that's what we see so far, but I wouldn't limit the enemy to that. Just because there has to be, if he's presenting himself as a Messiah type figure, then there has to be some type of saving type of image. And so if he is the one that puts on, if he's the one that gives you a spirit of affliction, then could he not at the same time take it off from you?
Yeah, like I guess physical illness. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he could do that.
And I would say that there has to be that time. I would say that he would have to be able to do that in order to present himself as a Messiah type figure.
Yeah, I mean,
I
guess you could kind of see that in Christianity to a certain extent, because you'll see sometimes televangelists even, putting their hands on people and somehow the person actually gets cured from whatever they have. And people will always use that and say, well, they use the name Jesus, so it's okay. And I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't mean that the source that healed that person was from Yahuwah.
The beast is going to be healed from a fatal wound.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I think who heals him is actually the false prophet, if I'm not mistaken. I would have to go back to Revelations, I think it's 11. But I think the false prophet's given power from the dragon as well to heal the beast. But even when you look at guys like Benny Hinn and all them, and they'll like force their hand on people. If let's just say hypothetically speaking, someone actually got really healed from that, that doesn't mean that they're getting it from the Father.
Right.
Right.
I'm just using a hypothetical out there. Let's just say hypothetically someone gets healed from one of their little crusades or whatever. Doesn't mean that Yahuwah is the one doing it.
That's right.
So people always use that to me. Oh, the name Jesus has power in it. I'm like, yeah, but whose power?
So even with that, like, there's no difference between that and, like, for example, you have what's known as Reiki, which is like spiritual healing. The majority of people that I've talked to that do Reiki, if they don't continue to do it, then even though they were healed from one thing, it's like something worse comes upon them. So they have to continue to perform that. Like, they have to continue to submit themselves to these spirits. Otherwise, eventually something worse comes upon them. So it's like, it's not a healing from Yahuwah. It's like you're making a covenant with the demon. If you don't continue to worship these demons, then
Yeah. I think another reason Yahuwah will allow him to do it is Yahuwah needs to allow him to have a certain amount of miraculous signs and wonders to deceive people, right? 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 says, those that don't love the truth will be given into the strong delusion, the great deception. Part of the great deception is they're believing what the false prophet's doing and what the beast is doing is of the Father. They will actually think that. They will actually think, like some Christians might even think that the false prophet is like a reincarnated John the Baptist. I'm pretty sure Catholics are going to be deceived into that. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people. I've seen a rise of reincarnation doctrine starting on the rise, even in this walk, because people are getting deceived into thinking that John the Baptist is a reincarnated Elijah, like literally Elijah reincarnated. So I'm seeing even a doctrine like that could easily serve the beast and Satan easily. because all they would have to do is say, oh yeah, that's John the Baptist again. Same concept. So I think that's part of the strong delusion. A lot of people are going to believe that, whoever the false prophet ends up being, which I kind of have an idea who I think he already is. But I think whoever it ends up being, people are going to be deceived by it. Those that take the mark of the beast are going to be deceived by it. They're going to think, oh, this guy is really a man of the creator, this false prophet. And they're going to think, oh, this is the creator in human form. It's ironic. Those that did not accept Yahusha when he came in a human body, they'll accept essentially Satan in a human body. It's very ironic to me, because Judaism believes, oh, our Messiah can't be divine, yeah, and they're going to accept a false Messiah that has a celestial being in it, essentially. So they're essentially, their ancestors rejected incarnation, the doctrine of incarnation, yet they're going to accept the beast who pretty much is going to mimic what Yahusha did. He's going to
Technically, it wasn't even their ancestors.
Yeah, it was it's not even their ancestors, but the belief of Judaism is just, it's funny that they can't accept that about Yahusha, but they're going to accept that about the beast, because the beast is literally going to do what Yahusha did. He's going to take on flesh, and he's going to come in human form, and people are going to, worship him. So that's the ironic part. So I just find that interesting, to a degree. It's kind of interesting because, so all right, let's see. I don't think there's anything else to talk about. Chapter 11, it was a very short chapter. Obviously you have Yahuwah foreshadowing the destroying of the firstborn and all that. Okay, so I think we're going to go to chapter 12. Brother Yahusha, would you like to read chapter 12?
Sure. Give me just a second. Okay. All right, chapter 12 of Exodus. Now Yahuwah had spoken to Moshe and Aharon in the land of Egypt, saying, this month shall he to you the beginning of months. Hold on, let me change. This month shall be to you the beginning of months. It is the first to you among the months of the year. Speak to all the congregation of the children of Yisrael, saying, on the 10th of this month, let each man take for himself a lamb according to the houses of their families, every man a lamb for his household. And if there be few in a household, so that there are not enough for the lamb, he shall take with himself his neighbor that lives near to him. As to the number of persons, every one according to each man's need, you shall make a reckoning for the lamb. It shall be to you a lamb unblemished, male of a year old. You shall take it from the lambs or from the goats. And it shall be kept by you to the 14th of this month, and all the multitude of the congregation of the children of Yisrael shall kill it toward evening. And they shall take of the blood and shall put it on the two doorposts and on the lintel in the houses wherever they shall eat them. And they shall eat the flesh in this night, roasted with fire. And they shall eat unleavened bread with bitter herbs, or rather with bitterness. You shall not eat of it raw nor boiled in water, but only roasted with fire, the head with its legs and its entrails. Nothing shall be left of it till the morning, and a bone of it you shall not break, but that which is left of it till the morning you shall burn with fire. And thus shall you eat it, your loins girded, and your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste. It is a Pesach to Yahuwah. And I will go throughout the land of Mitzrayim in that night, and I will smite every firstborn in the land of Mitzrayim, both man and beast, and on all the Elohim of Mitzrayim will I execute vengeance. I am Yahuwah. And the blood shall be for a sign to you on the houses in which you are, and I will see the blood and will protect you. And there shall not be on you the plague of destruction when I smite in the land of Mitzrayim. And this day shall be to you a memorial, and you shall keep it a feast to Yahuwah. For all your generations you shall keep it a feast for a perpetual ordinance. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and from the first day you shall utterly remove leaven from your houses. Whoever shall eat leaven, that soul shall be utterly destroyed from Yashraal from the first day until the seventh day. And the first day shall be called set apart, and the seventh day shall be a set apart convocation to you. You shall do no servile work on them, only as many things as is necessary shall be done by every soul. This one shall be done by you. And you shall keep this commandment, for on this day will I bring out your force out of the land of Mitzrayim, and you shall make this day a perpetual ordinance for you throughout your generations. Beginning the 14th day of the first month, you shall eat unleavened bread from evening till the 21st day of the month till evening. 7 days leaven shall not be found in your houses. Whosoever shall eat anything leavened, that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Yashraal, both among the occupiers of the land and the original inhabitants. You shall eat nothing leavened, but in every habitation of yours you shall eat unleavened bread. And Mashah called all the elders of the children of Yashraal and said to them, Go away and take to yourselves the land according to your families, and slay the Pesach. And you shall take a bunch of hyssop, and having dipped it into some of the blood that is by the door, you shall touch the lintel, and upon both doorposts, even of the blood which is by the door. But none of you shall go out of the door of his houses until morning. And Yahuwah shall pass by to smite the Mitzrites, and shall see the blood upon the lintel and upon the doorpost. And Yahuwah shall pass over the door, and shall not allow the destroyer to enter into your houses to kill you. And keep this thing as an ordinance for yourself and for your children forever. And if you should enter into the land which Yahuwah shall give you, as he has spoken, keep this service. And it shall come to pass, if your sons say to you, What is the service? That you shall say to them, This Pesach is an offering to Yahuwah, as he defended the houses of the children of Yashraal and Mitzrayim, when he struck the Mitzrites, but delivered our houses. And the people bowed and worshipped. And the children of Yashraal departed and did as Yahuwah commanded Moshe and Aharon, so did they. And it came to pass at midnight that Yahuwah struck the firstborn in the land of Mitzrayim, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on the throne to the firstborn of the captive in the dungeon, and the firstborn of all cattle. And Pharaoh rose up at night, and his servants and all the Mitzrites, and there was a great cry in all the land of Mitzrayim. There was not a house in which there was not one dead. And Pharaoh called Moshe and Aharon by night and said to them, Rise and depart from my people. Give me a second. Rise and depart from my people, both you and the children of Yashraal. Go and serve Yahuwah your Eluah, even as you say. And take with your sheep and your oxen. Baruch me also, I pray you. And the Mitzrites constrained the people so that they cast them out of the land with haste. For they said, We shall all die. The people took their dough before their meal was leavened, bound up as it was in their garments on their shoulders. And the children of Yashraal did as Moshe commanded them, and they asked the Mitzrites articles of silver and gold and apparel. And Yahuwah gave his people favor in the sight of the Mitzrites, and they lent to them, and they plundered the Mitzrites. And the children Yashraal departed from Ramses to Sukkot, the full number of 600,000 footmen, even men beside the baggage. And a great mixture went up with them, and sheep and oxen and very much cattle. And they baked the dough which they brought out of Mitzrayim, unleavened cakes, where they had not been leavened. The Mitzrites cast them out, and they would not remain. Neither did they prepare provisions for themselves for the journey. And the sojourning of the children of Yasharal, while they sojourned in the land of Mitzrayim and the land of Canaan, was 430 years. And it came to pass after the 430 years, all the forces of Yahuwah came forth out of the land of Mitzrayim by night. It is a watch. It is a watch kept to Yahuwah so that he should bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim. That very night is a watch kept to Yahuwah so that it should be to all the children of Yasharal to their generations. And Yahuwah said to Moshe and Aharon, this is the Torah of the Pasach. No stranger shall eat of it. And every slave or servant bought with money, him ye shall circumcise, and then shall he eat of it. A sojourner or hireling shall not eat of it. In one house shall it be eaten, and you shall not carry of the flesh out from the house, and a bone of it you shall not break. All the congregation of the children of Yasharal shall keep it. And if any proselyte shall come to you to keep the Pesach to Yahuwah, you shall circumcise every male of him, and then shall he approach to offer it. And he shall be even as the original inhabitant of the land. No uncircumcised person shall eat of it. There shall be one Torah to the native and to the proselyte coming among you. And the children of Yasharal did as Yahuwah commanded Moshe and Aharon for them, so they did. And it came to pass in that day that Yahuwah brought out the children of Yasharal from the land of Mitzrayim with their forces. So I really like, I think there's a lot of places where the Septuagint just makes it absolutely clear. When you go to verse 42, it is a watch kept to Yahuwah. When you go to the Brit Hadasha, when you have Yahusha, right after they have the right after they have the Last Supper, they end up going into the the Garden of Gethsemane, and you have Yahusha praying, and he says to his disciples, "Could you not watch for me, watch with me for 1 hour?" He literally calls that night a watch. Now, if you end up keeping your Pesach rather than the beginning, if you keep your Pesach at the end of the 14th rather than the beginning of the 14th, then you won't end up having that. You end up having Yahusha keeping the Pesach and then going into the Garden of Gethsemane, having prayer, telling his disciples, "Could you not watch with me for 1 hour?" And then they end up going forth, and he ends up being executed, and they end up having the Feast of Unleavened Bread right after. That is physically impossible if you have your Pesach at the end of at the end of the 14th rather than the beginning. It just doesn't line up. I don't know if that makes sense. But this verse, like when you look in the Masoretic, verse 42, it just says it is a night to be much observed unto Yahuwah, versus the Septuagint, which literally says it's a watch. And Yahuwah or Yahusha literally says, "Could you not watch with me for 1 hour?" So I think that the Septuagint supports our view. Also, this part where you have verse 31, where it says, "And Pharaoh called Moshe and Aharon by night and said to them, Rise and depart from my people, both you and the children of Yasharal. Go and serve Yahuwah, your Elohah, even as you say." When you look at commands, Yahuwah commanded them not to leave or not to go out of their house throughout that whole night, not to leave the house before morning arose. But this says that Pharaoh called them by night. So I would say, just based off the former commands that you see in Exodus, I would say that they wouldn't have actually gone to Pharaoh, but that Pharaoh sent someone to tell them, like, get out of my land. Because if they had left their house right then and there at night and had gone to Pharaoh, then they would have been breaking a command, that Yahusha, or rather Yahuwah, told them, don't go out of your house um, before morning, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, there seems to be even Judean midrashes about that, supposedly. Whether it's true or not, there's a midrash that even the Ten Commandments movie, I think, pulled from, where the daughter of Pharaoh goes to Moses and them when they're eating, and she gets mad at him. She gets mad at him because of her dead firstborn, reasonably mad. And she's like, I cared for you, I did this for you, why did I have to lose my firstborn son and all that? So there is a Judean midrash that kind of hints at what you're talking about.
I would have to agree with them.
That's where the Ten Commandments, though, FYI, a lot of what you see in that movie is midrash and Mishnah material, a lot of it, because it's a lot of added in stuff. Most of it I don't agree with. That part I do agree with, but the end of Pharaoh surviving and believing in Yahuwah, that I don't believe. That I think actually contradicts scripture. When you see Pharaoh, you see once we get to the chapter where the Egyptians are sunk in the Red Sea, that would include Pharaoh. So yeah, some of the stuff you kind of have to ignore that.
Oh yeah, you always do. Yeah.
So let's see here. What I thought was interesting here in the Septuagint, though, is, and it might read the same in the Masoretic, but I found it interesting that it says, on all the mighty ones of Egypt, I will execute vengeance. I am Yahuwah. And I always bring this up to people that say, oh, their gods are just wood and stone. It's just wood and stone. And I'm like, so Yahuwah is executing vengeance on something that doesn't speak and doesn't move. Really now. So this is part of the problem. We're ignorant to pagan culture, and we're ignorant to the polytheistic pantheon religions and where that stems from. What beings actually did they, even though they would go and bow before the idols, what did the idols represent? They represented real beings, lesser mighty ones. Okay. So unfortunately, a lot of us in Christianity, we're not taught with the divine council concept. Unfortunately, we're not taught with that. You go to every ancient culture, they'll laugh at you and say, you don't know about this? Because every ancient culture, they have a version of it. Greek mythology has a version of it. If you ever watched the Clash of the Titans, that whole scene where you got Zeus in the middle, you got Poseidon, you got all of them sitting around them. All these other religions have a form of the divine council. Is it the correct version? No. But they do have a perverted version of the divine council from the enemy's perspective. From Yahuwah's perspective, obviously, in the truth, biblical perspective, Yahuwah is the one sitting on that middle throne. He is the king of the Elohim. He is the Elohim of Elohim. He is the mighty one of mighty ones. All these fallen beings that the Egyptians worshipped still are under Yahuwah's sovereignty and still are under him. So when Yahuwah is saying, I'm going to judge the mighty ones of Egypt, he literally means that. He's going to take revenge on the mighty ones of Egypt. And he's not just talking about idols. So a lot of people don't understand that because like I said, we haven't been raised with this concept of history and what happened in history, especially the pre-flood history and what really was going on back then. And even though it's not literally in any text, most ancient cultures will have a version of the story where these so-called gods came down from heaven, mated with women, got mankind to worship them as gods. Okay, so when Yahuwah is saying, I'm going to take vengeance on the gods of Egypt, he's talking literally. Obviously, these gods haven't been judged yet. They're going to be judged, you know. In this physical sense, Yahuwah is judging, you know, them in this physical sense, where every plague he sends is to mock that God. You think about it, right? I'm pretty sure Brother Yahusha has some input here too. You know, you got every plague representing one of their gods. So that's how he's taking vengeance in that exact way. So he's sending blood to the Nile to mock their god of the Nile. He's sending frogs, because I'm pretty sure they had a deity of frogs. I'm pretty sure they worshipped everything. I'm pretty sure, you know, so every plague is going to mock them, to take vengeance on them. But ultimately, Yahuwah, in we could say, eternal vengeance, is when he gets to throw them into the lake of fire. Really, that's his final vengeance. But when I look at this verse here in verse 12, I don't just think about it as, oh, he's going to destroy their idols. That's, you know, kind of the traditional understanding. But when you understand that these beings existed and still exist to this day, he's saying, you know, I'm taking revenge on these guys that were originally part of my council that got, you know, cocky. I put them over the nations. They got cocky and they wanted to be worshipped. So I think that's kind of like the backdrop. I kind of wanted to give a little backdrop to understand what that verse is really saying. It's saying he is literally going to judge these fallen mountains. He's going to judge them. He's going to take vengeance on them. So, and we see that with the plagues. Every plague represents one of their mighty ones. You know, so I just wanted to mention that. I know that might be a foreign concept to some, but when you look at Deuteronomy 32 verse 8, when you look at Psalms 82, you look at all these other places, it's the same narrative. It's, you know, he set up a messenger over every nation to judge them and to rule them, and they rebelled. They wanted to be worshipped themselves, and all that. So I just wanted to kind of bring that out, just in case someone was wondering, how is he, you know, how is he taking vengeance on something that's wood and stone and all that, you know. So, but let's see here. The firstborn, 1-year-old male. I don't know, Mom, does your version say male for the lamb? I'm just curious.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. I know sometimes the Masoretic will leave out stuff like that sometimes.
No, I was just.
And to add to Brother Joshua's point, when you look at verse 12, he's saying he's going to do this in that night, right? He's striking the firstborn in that night. So when are they eating the Passover lamb? They're eating the Passover lamb when he's striking the Egyptians, right? So they're eating the lamb that night. So, well, the reason I bring this up is, if you are going to keep Passover at the end of the 14th into the 15th, the problem with that is you would be eating the lamb when they're leaving Egypt. It's not exactly historically accurate. They're leaving Egypt the next day on the 15th. You see what I'm saying? So they're not eating the lamb on the 15th. So if you just look at the original story, it doesn't make sense to have the Passover the end of the 14th into the 15th. It would actually contradict Exodus 12. Baruch, Mom.
Thank you.
I did want to talk about the destroyer, because a lot of people misunderstand this concept, and I see people out there trying to say that Yahuwah or Yahusha is the destroyer. He's not the destroyer, guys. The destroyer is a separate entity. He's not the destroyer. And I can pull from Judean traditional understandings, earlier Hebrew understandings of this, to show that he's not the destroyer. and they never would have interpreted Yahuwah as the destroyer. The destroyer, I truly believe, is Satan, according to multiple traditional Hebrew, extra biblical texts, you can say. And multiple texts agree that the destroyer, Satan, was known by tradition, in Judean tradition, as the angel of destruction. He was known as this entity that, and even if you think about it, when Yahusha speaks of Satan in the New Testament, what does he say all the time? The enemy can only kill and destroy. That's all he can do. He's an entity of destruction. So that alone seems to be hinting that he's the destroyer. I know there's other opinions on it. I know people think that it's the same thing as the messenger of Yahuwah. I respectfully disagree. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
So I never thought about that. Like you said there's scripture in the nothing comes to mind. I mean, I'm sure there is, just off the top of my head. You said there's scripture that says that the enemy can only kill, steal and destroy. So then how do we fit in false miracles, signs, and wonders where people are supposedly being delivered?
I guess Yahuwah gives them the ability to do it, to deceive people that are pre-elected to be deceived. Yahuwah is going to give him the ability to do that, or allow him to do that. He's going to allow him to have that ability, because there's certain times in prophecy where even Abaddon, the key is given to him of the bottomless pit, and Yahuwah ultimately is the one allowing that key to the bottomless pit to be given to him, right? So Yahuwah could easily give him that ability. I think what Yahusha is trying to say, though, in the Brit Hadashah is that naturally Satan is all evil. He can only kill and destroy. He can't. It's of himself. He cannot revive. He cannot give life because there is no life in him. I think is what Yahusha is trying to also pull from a spiritual perspective, that Satan is all evil. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
So while you were speaking, what came to mind was that even though they're performing these miracles that seemingly bring life, seemingly bring healing and deliverance, they don't ultimately bring healing and deliverance that lead to everlasting life. They don't lead you to Yahusha. That they might bring healing and deliverance at that moment, but they don't lead you to the to faith in Yahusha that leads you to everlasting life. That's what comes to mind.
Yeah, and I think that was Yahusha's point with that as well, was that Satan really doesn't have any true light in him. He doesn't. So Satan can't give salvation to someone. It's impossible. He is all darkness. He's all sin. He represents sin. But as far as the destroyer, going back to the destroyer, I think there's multiple places in the canon that show Satan's the destroyer, not just that verse from Yahusha. You see Abaddon. When you look at the name Abaddon or Apollyon, it literally translates in English as destroyer. So Revelations 9:11. And most people would understand that Apollyon, either you believe it's Nimrod or Satan. I think it's a mix of the two. I think there's somehow a oneness there where Nimrod and Satan are both Apollyon somehow. But anyway, that's one of the hints to me that Satan is the destroyer. Because if he's Apollyon, he's being called the destroyer, literally, in that name. And just, I mean, like I said, Jewish tradition, when I say Jewish tradition, I'm even talking about the Targums, by the way. call him, it will say the angel, the destroying angel, will not be allowed to strike your homes because the word of Yahuwah is protecting their homes. So the reason I bring this up is even in the Jewish Targums, specifically the Pseudo-Jonathan one, mentions this word of Yahuwah person physically protecting the houses of the children of Israel during this night against the destroyer. He doesn't allow the destroyer to come in. So by default, the word of Yahuwah is not the destroyer. So I know there's other opinions out there, due to false books like Jubilees and all that have, very late rabbinical opinions that are revisionist opinions. And they try to combine the messenger of Yahuwah with Satan. You can't do that. Satan was never the messenger of Yahuwah. So anyway, I didn't want to go on a whole tangent, but just want to explain out there, no, the destroyer is not Yahuwah. It's not him. So what's actually happening is Yahuwah is sending this entity called the destroyer to actually kill some of the firstborn of Egypt when Yahuwah is also killing the firstborn of Egypt. So he's kind of like sending him to certain, houses or whatever, while Yahuwah is getting the rest. And then what happens is once all the firstborn of Egypt are killed, this destroyer wants to keep going. He's kind of like overzealous. He wants to keep going. He wants to try to kill the firstborn of Israel. And Yahuwah's like, nah, that ain't happening. Nope. And by the way, this is kind of hinted at in the Septuagint. I don't know if you saw this in my translation, but when you look at the Septuagint, it doesn't say pass over. It says protect. So it kind of hints to what the Pseudo-Jonathan is talking about, by the way. So it says, where does it say who is going to protect your households? Let me see. Entire elders this night. It says human animal. I just want to see where the word. I might have to look that up real quick. Let's see if I can find the word protect. I knew it's multiple times in Exodus 12. It says that. Let me see here. I'm gonna just do a little word search on my sword here. Protect. Exodus 12:13. So it says here in the Bretons, and the blood shall be for you a sign on the houses in which you are, and I will see the blood and will protect you. There shall not be on you the plague of destruction when I smite in the land of Egypt. So it's kind of giving you the same idea as the Pseudo-Jonathan. Yahuwah himself is protecting their households from the destroyer. So anyway, just wanted to mention that. So anyway, I think that's about it. Obviously, we see the constant parallels to Yahusha in this story. We see the blood on the doorpost. Spiritually, do we have the blood on the doorpost of our heart? Are we truly, in Yahusha and all that? When Passover time comes around, a lot of us, we do self-examination, all that, so on and so forth. Now, Mom, does your version have, when it's talking about picking out the lamb, right? Does it have lamb and goats? I'm just curious.
Yes.
Okay. Just curious. Okay. Because it's been a long time since I looked into that, but I could have swore that the Masoretic's supposed to leave out goats. That just says, take them of the lambs. I can't believe I almost forgot to touch on this. Verse 40. This is where the Masoretic goes a little haywire here. Now, most of your versions are going to say they were in Egypt for 434 years, which would contradict the New Testament.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Contradict tons of things in Scripture. Okay. The Septuagint here says, now the residence of the sons of Yasharel during which they dwelt in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan was 430 years. So again,
Yeah.
then it says, and it happened after the 430 years that all the armies of Yahuwah went out from the land of Egypt during the night. It is a vigil for Yahuwah so that he might bring them out of the land of Egypt. That night is the vigil for Yahuwah so that it might be for all the sons of Yasharal throughout their generations. So to me, that was a big deal though as well. Is historically the Masoretic text is off in that verse. And the reason we know that is the Septuagint says Canaan in Egypt, the Samaritan Torah, Canaan in Egypt. Almost every other previous version has Canaan in Egypt. Targum Pseudo-Jonathan, Canaan in Egypt. So again, that's a little bit of revisionist history, just FYI, when you're reading a Masoretic text Bible out there, just be careful with that in verse 40 there. Obviously we see the command of circumcision at the end of the chapter there as well, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we have the no uncircumcised can eat of the Passover unless they be circumcised. And I know some people take that as only spiritual, but the problem is when you read the text of itself, it can't be only spiritual. You can't take that as only spiritual. Like if you've never been circumcised in your life, you can't be eating the Passover just because you're spiritually circumcised. You have to physically, like Yahuwah does not make an allowance just because you've been already regenerated that you can eat it without being physically circumcised, because then he's giving you a separate standard than his own people, you know. Go ahead, brother Yahusha, I see your hands up.
I'll come back. Never mind.
Okay. I just wanted to bring that up because I know that belief system's out there where people think physical circumcision is done away with. They think it doesn't matter. You can just be spiritually circumcised. But when you look at the text, that's not what the text is saying. So you need both if you're going to partake of the Passover. All right. I'm trying to think who's going to read next. Who hasn't read yet? Sister Sadia, would you like to read chapter 13? If you're able to, that's no pressure. Let's see who else we got here. We got Ronnie, we got Brother Moses. Josie's here as well. It's all right, sis. If you're not able to, I can call on someone else. Let's see here, Sister Josie, are you able to read chapter 13 for us? Is anyone else available to read?
I can read again if you need me to.
Okay. Oh yeah, go ahead, brother Yahusha.
I apologize. My memory is like crap today.
It's all right, man.
Every time I want to say something, like 2 minutes into wanting to say something, it just escapes my mind. So, where am I at?
Exodus 13.
And Yahuwah spoke to Mishah, saying, set apart to me every firstborn, first produced, opening every womb among the children of Yasharal, both man and beast. It is mine. Mishah said to the people, remember this day in which you came forth out of the land of Mitzrayim, out of the house of bondage, for with a strong hand Yahuwah brought you out from this place. No leavened bread shall be eaten. For on this day you are going out, in the month of Nu. And it shall come to pass when Yahuwah your Elohah shall have brought you into the land of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Hivites and the Jebusites and the Girgashites and the Perizzites, which he swore to your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, that you shall perform the service in this month. 6 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day is a feast to Yahuwah. 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread. Nothing leavened shall be seen within you, neither shall you have leaven in all your borders. And you shall tell your son in that day, saying, Therefore Yahuwah has dealt thus with me, as I was going out of Mitzrayim. And it shall be unto you a sign upon your hand, and a memorial before your eyes, that the Torah of Yahuwah may be in your mouth. For with the strong hand Yahuwah Elohah has brought you out of Mitzrayim. And preserve this Torah according to the times and the seasons from year to year. And it shall come to pass when Yahuwah your Elohah shall bring you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to your fathers, and shall give it to you, that you shall set apart every opening the womb, the males to Yahuwah, every one that opens the womb out of the herds or among your cattle, as many as you shall have, you shall set apart the males to Yahuwah. Everyone opening the womb of the donkey you shall change for a sheep. And if you will not change it, you shall redeem it. Every firstborn of man among your sons you shall redeem. And if later on your son should ask you, saying, What is this? Then you shall say to him, With a strong hand it is Yahuwah brought us. With a strong hand Yahuwah brought us out of Mitzrayim, out of the house of bondage. And when Pharaoh hardened to send us away, or his heart so as not to send us away, he slew every firstborn in the land of Mitzrayim, both of the firstborn of man and the firstborn of Mitzrayim. Both of the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beast. Therefore, I offer every offspring that opens the womb, the males to Yahuwah, and every firstborn of my sons I will redeem. And it shall be for a sign upon your hand, and immovable before your eyes. For with a strong hand Yahuwah has brought you out of Mitzrayim. And when Pharaoh sent forth the people, Yahuwah led them not by the way of the land of the Philistines, because it was near. For Yahuwah said, Lest at any time the people repent when they see war and return to Mitzrayim. And Yahuwah led the people round by the way to the wilderness, to the Red Sea. And in the 5th generation the children of Yasharah went up out of the land of Mitzrayim. And Mashah took the bones of Yusuf with him, for he had solemnly adjured the children of Yasharal, saying, Yahuwah will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here with you. When the children of Yasharal departed from Sukkot, and encamped in Atham by the wilderness. And Yahuwah led them in the day by a pillar of cloud, to show them the way, and in the night by a pillar of fire. And the pillar of cloud failed, not by day, nor the pillar of fire by night, before all the people.
All right. So Exodus 13. It's a very interesting chapter. You get the introduction of the law of the firstborn. Again. Yeah. And this is interesting too. So this is why I do believe the whole feast you are supposed to eat unleavened bread. I know it's kind of controversial, and it seems like the night of the Passover, you're not eating unleavened bread. But I just want to show something in this chapter here. I get where the idea you're only eating it for the 6 days is in verse 6, but if you continue on to the next verse, it literally says 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. So where the assumption comes from that we're not supposed to eat for the full 7 days is verse 6.
6 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day is a feast to Yahuwah. So it's saying to eat unleavened bread for 6 days, and on the 7th day is a feast to Yahuwah. Then it says 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread, nothing leavened shall be seen with you. Neither shall you have leaven in all your boards. What we need to understand too is there was no such thing as verse numberings in the original, manuscripts. So that's that's a complete thought there. There's still, so it's not that Yahuwah is contradicting himself. He's making a point on the 7th day that it's a feast. Like that's the high day. That's the high Sabbath. That is a feast day. And then he continues on to say 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. By the way, the Masoretes felt the need to change verse 6 to agree with verse 7 because they thought it was a contradiction. Just FYI, I've actually looked into this historically, and why the Masoretic differs is because they felt this was a so-called error in the Septuagint. So they felt, oh, let's change 6 to 7, not realizing it's a complete thought, 6 into 7, not realizing that you don't need to be changing that because the very next verse clarifies that it is for a full 7 days. But anyway, go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
So from the previous chapter going into this chapter, this is what I wanted to bring up, and then I forgot. So there's a very specific way to keep this. There's a very specific way to do this. But then again, at the same time, there are things that we can't keep, regarding like the offerings that require the Levites. So what would be your answer to, obviously we don't, if we can't keep it, if it can't be a lamb that is of the first year, we keep it verbatim to what we can.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly how I'm trying to word it, but
I get what you're saying. So now let's put the offerings to the side, right? Because we're not in a Levitical priesthood, so there's no way we would be able to do that anyway. The first Passover did not have sacrifices. That was added until later. So what I believe Yahuwah requires of us is to do it to the T, which I believe that's what you're saying, according to Exodus 12, the original Passover. Now, if we can't do certain things according to that Passover, which really, it's not that we don't have the resources, it's more or less we wouldn't be near anyone that would have a lamb, and so on and so forth. If we're, especially from people like me in the city, I definitely would say to hold off, don't get a leg of lamb.
So what would be your answer to someone that would think that that's okay?
I would say if that's okay, then Yahuwah's instructions should have been a little bit vaguer. If it was okay, then Yahuwah should have been giving us so many specific instructions in Exodus 12 that clearly the point is that you're supposed to keep the animal almost like a pet for 4 days, and then you're killing it. To me, that would be kind of defeat the purpose if you're going to if you're allowed to just vaguely just get a leg of lamb. It's like, why is he giving us all these specific instructions then if it's okay to do that?
Because I know people's argument would be like, we can't keep it today to the T, so we should at least try to keep it. I mean, obviously, I agree that we need to keep it to the T, or we don't need to do it at all.
But, my example, my verse I would give for support for our opinion is
the second Passover, Numbers 9, where in general, Yahuwah says, right, you are to keep it according to what? All its law? He doesn't say some of its law. He said all of its ceremonies, all of its. So even if you go by the original Passover without the sacrifices, you still got to keep it to the T. He's saying it himself. This is not opinion. This is Yahuwah in Numbers 9, his own words, not mine. You are to keep it according to all its ceremonies. He does not say try your best. And again, this I'm not trying to attack anyone. I'm being honest with brothers and sisters, because this could be a sin issue. This could be a Nadab and a Bihu issue. I don't want any brothers and sisters ignorantly bringing strange fire. So it's at least my duty to show you this, and you can do whatever after me telling you this. You're no longer ignorant if you're listening to this. So it's up to you, whatever you feel. If you still feel led to try to halfway memorialize it, that's up to you. That's between you and Abba. Hey, that's up between him and you. I'm not going to force this on brothers and sisters, but I'm just letting you know what the text literally says. It says according to all its ceremonies. That's pretty serious to me. That means you don't omit a thing. So, if you can't put the blood of the lamb on your doorpost, if you can't do everything Exodus 12 says at the minimum, then we probably shouldn't be doing it at all. So go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
So we do see two different Pesachs. We see the one in Exodus, and then we see the one later on where there are, there's the Exodus, or there's the Pesach, but then there's also
the offerings.
The offerings. So would those be two different laws? Like if you can't keep those offerings, and we can't because there's not the, we don't have the Levitical priesthood, should we be keeping it at all?
Yeah, and that's a good argument you bring up. I really don't know. I'm really not dogmatic on that, because that was added laws unto the Passover. That wasn't the original Passover law. So that was added because of the priesthood they were in. Now that we're in a Melchizedek priesthood, there could be a temporary change in that law. Like Paul says, there was a change in the Torah because of the Melchizedek priesthood coming in. So technically, one could make, it's a very vague argument or a vague proof, but according to Hebrews, one could say that, well, we go back to the original Passover because there's no Levitical priesthood. So, but I can't really say that there's a lot of proof to use that. Now, if we can't do that, if we cannot go back to the original Exodus 12 Passover, the original Passover that they had in Egypt, we really definitely can't keep it at all. If we were to keep the Passover they had in the Levitical priesthood, there's no way. There's no way, shape, or form any of us, whether you're a farmer or not, you're not going to be able to keep that without being in that type of priesthood. So I would hope that Yahuwah wants us to be keeping the Exodus 12 one, because that's the only way that we would be able to keep it whatsoever in this day and age. If not, then we kind of have to just wait until the millennium. If someone was to make the argument and say, well, you need to keep the one that he added all the sacrifices to, if that's the case, then you're kind of forced to wait until the millennium. So it's I would hope, since Yahuwah said in Exodus 12 is a memorial to keep out through every generation, I believe Yahuwah, knowing that we would be in a heavenly Melchizedek priesthood at this time and not able to keep the other Passover that had all those sacrifices in it, I would hope that he's expecting us to keep the original Passover, not the Passover that we see later on in Numbers and Deuteronomy with the added sacrifices that Hezekiah would have kept. I would hope he's actually expecting us to keep the Exodus 12 one.
even the Exodus 12 one is kind of hard for people out here where I'm living to keep anyway. So it's kind of like it's kind of a mood point which one we're supposed to keep, because quite frankly, unless we're able to at the minimum keep everything that's in Exodus 12 to the T, you're kind of still in the issue of doing it in your own way anyway. So that would be my answer, is that either way, whichever Passover you look at, the original Passover or the one later on in Deuteronomy 16 and all that has all the sacrifices added to it, either way, the majority of us are in a living situation where it's practically impossible to keep that. It's unless Yahuwah intervenes and puts us in a situation we're able to keep that, where most of us are living, you're not going to be able to keep that. You're not going to be able to put the blood on the doorpost. You're not going to be able to know it's a male, especially if you get a leg of lamb. This is another thing against the leg of lamb thing. How do you know if it's a 1-year-old? How do you know if it's a male? Specifically, he tells you it's a male. You can't eat a female lamb. So again, this is why I say the leg of lamb thing, I think that's very dangerous to do that. Just get a pre-cooked leg of lamb. I did that for 1 year, and honestly, the year after, I was already convicted. I remember I got it 1 year. It was like back in 2016, 17, and I got a leg of lamb for Passover, and I've never done it again because I was convicted right away. The scripture says literally it has to be 1-year-old, has to be exactly a whole year old, has to be a male. So when you're getting pre-cooked lamb, there's no way you're going to be able to tell. Unless you're going to ask the person, which who knows if they even know, whether the lamb that was killed and slaughtered at the slaughterhouse and brought it to their place for it to be cooked. You're going to need to talk to the person at the slaughterhouse. You're going to have to, it's very hard. So this is why in years past I've held off, because Yahuwah makes it very clear you don't do things in your own way. Nadab and Abihu tried to bring fire that was not commanded, strange fire, strange incense. Boom. So
we did it 1 year, babe, at the Blood Red Moon back. When was the first one? About not too, maybe. Yeah, we did that, and it was a 1-year-old lamb. The brothers really made sure, and they inspected it and everything, and we cooked it with. I think I'm not sure he prepared it, but we know that once we ate everything, he put it back on the fire, what was left, and he burned it, and we had a beautiful, beautiful Passover that year. And we all sat out and watched the blood moon go over, and that's why I kind of like what we do, because I don't know if this sounds right or not, but so far when we've been having our feast times, we've been with the full moon, or the second day of a full moon. We've been within that full moon period. And I think, because he says he marks the moon is a marker, right? And so anybody who else is doing their Passovers and all, and they're not on the marker, you just kind of wonder where you guys at, if that's what the scripture says. Because if we just do what it says, we're on target, and I don't know, like I know Joshua wants to come over here for Passover, and I don't know if we could just do we have to do exactly what it says, because we would have to find a farmer that the lamb is already almost 6 months old now. Because so we'd have to find out. I'm sure there's kosher places. I mean,
but
downtown
also
LA
the thing is,
cool.
sis, you don't have to, I just want to clarify, you don't have to get that 1-year-old lamb until it's already you're only keeping it for about 4 days. So essentially you have, from now until the next 6-7 months, you have plenty of time to find that. And you're only keeping it for 4 days. You're keeping it the 10th of Aviv to the 14th. So you're only keeping it about 4 days, and you're killing it. So realistically, you would not even have to find the lamb until like it's 10 days into the month of Abib. So
Yes.
we definitely have plenty of time to figure that all out, and Yahuwah willing. But yeah, I know me and Joshua are pretty set in our belief. I understand that other people are not there yet, and they feel fine. Like I said, I'm not trying to beat anyone over the head with this. I'm just I'm doing what Yahuwah says in Ezekiel 33. I don't want blood to be on my hands.
Uh-huh.
At the end of the day, Yahuwah is very serious about his Torah. He doesn't want us improvising. He doesn't want us doing it our own way. He punished Aaron's own sons for doing it their own way. I'm pretty sure they were well-intentioned. I'm pretty sure they were like, oh, well, we can't exactly do this. There's something missing. Oh, we're going to do this way. And they tried to bring him incense that was not exactly 100% proper. And
Boom.
so I'm just not trying to make the same mistake that Nadab and Abihu made.
Right.
Yahuwah is merciful. Yahuwah knows our hearts, but there's always a but there's also his wrath, and he doesn't play around. And we have to understand obedience is better than sacrifice. Sacrifice meaning that you want
I said that
and want to give him something, right?
Yeah.
So in that aspect, he told King Saul, listen, man, I told you not to do this. I told you not to give me the plunder as a sacrifice. What are you doing? I told you to put everything under the ban. And then Yahuwah had to remove his kingship. So there's multiple examples of this in scripture where if you don't do exactly what Yahuwah tells you to do, there's always going to be repercussions. There's always going to be repercussions. It might not be death. It might not be him striking you down, but there's always going to be repercussions for us wanting to do things our own way.
Now, a real quick question. So let's just say we can't, I mean, maybe because I think you need a pretty big backyard to be able to burn what's left. And I don't know that we have that because we'd have to buy at least a cord of wood or, or half a cord just to make sure we have enough fire to burn it afterwards. But when we did it, we were out in the wilderness and we did it. And, there's a place where you could, make a big bomb. I mean, it was a big bonfire, not a small one, a big, big one. But can we just recognize
improvise?
Improvise and maybe cook lamb or
also what I wanted to say about the burn thing, sis, you don't have to burn it in the backyard. The verse says just burn with fire. I don't know if you had if you have a fireplace, you could burn it in that. I mean, you don't have to burn it outside is what I'm trying to say. There's like Yahuwah doesn't that he actually gives a very vague commandment of that.
I would say it doesn't really take a lot to burn a lamb. I mean, as long as you have a fire, a fire pit doesn't even have to be really that big. It's easy to make a fire pit and to burn a lamb. I would say, I would like to at least try. I would like to at least say that we tried rather than say that we didn't try. Ultimately, if Yahuwah provides everything that we need, then he'll provide everything that we need and he will allow it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But we can at least say that we tried. But it doesn't really take a lot to make a fire pit. I mean, you can, if you've ever been camping, it's easy to make a fire and to make a fire pit. And that doesn't take a lot of room. That takes like maybe, that takes about the width and literally it takes like maybe like 5 feet around, 5 feet. That's not a lot of room. And it doesn't take a lot to.
Sadie, you have a nice fire pit.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that would fit in her fire pit. The 1-year-old lamb is not that big.
Ours is
a 1-year-old lamb is not any wider than I am.
I'll
It
put-
doesn't
oh,
take a
yeah,
lot to stick a lamb on there.
Yeah.
Run it up.
It's because it's not going to be a fully grown lamb. It's 1-year-old. You're talking about very,
Exactly.
I mean, even if it
Not
was
a
a fully
cow.
grown lamb, it still wouldn't require that much room.
no, lambs
Well,
are not that
I
big.
got a couple temples around here. I'll go and ask, and then I could go downtown LA where the Jewish district is and
Yeah,
see if they would
yeah,
have a place where we can
yeah.
find it, see the lamb, because I'm
I
sure
mean,
they're
where
not
I'm at
gonna
with
tell us
that
something
is
that's not
that
right.
if my roommate, if my roommate can, and he doesn't keep the same date as us, and yet he still, he still keeps lambs. He still has a lamb every Pesach. I know if Yahuwah can, and I believe that Yahuwah, even though he's not keeping it at the same date that we are, that's the date that he believes is scriptural. And I believe Yahuwah is, showing favor upon that because, even though it's not the right date as far as what we believe, it's the right date as far as what he believes. And I believe Yahuwah is going to have mercy upon that. And he has put forth everything that, he's put forth an effort to at least try.
Right. That's the heart that
And
counts. The heart
that's where I think
He's
that we need
he's
to.
doing his best on what
Mhm.
his view is and how he's marking it
Mm-hmm.
for whatever
Right.
count.
So we need to at least be doing the same. If we're coming together, then we should at least be trying. We have to at least say that we tried to get lamb.
Well, we could also, maybe I will have to find out. We can go to OPATH, and OPATH is on our timing, I believe.
Uh-huh.
And we can actually, they have sukkahs, so you can rent a sukkah, and we can stay on the land there. And they do have a big barbecuer, and it's all there on the land, and then they have service. And we could ask, even if ours is not on their timing, they would let us go and stay and do it. They're not funny about, because Sukkot starts like 2 weeks before we do, and different groups have gone in there different timing, and they don't make an issue out of it. It's just, I'd have to talk to Valerie, because we could do that. I could get my trailer up there, and us ladies can sleep in my trailer, and you guys can pitch a tent. If it gets too cold,
Yeah.
you can come. Yeah, you can pitch the sukkahs, because the sukkahs are already ready. They have a big barrel, and they're covered. You can see the outside.
We could look more into that, sis. I would like to also look into, obviously, other fellowships out there are going to have different dates. My only concern is I want to make sure we're at least relatively, keeping it on the right date, and not a month too soon or a month too late. You know what I'm saying? I want to at least.
Oh, they're not that far.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to reach out to
here.
other people like months ago. I was going to reach out to Jacob and this and that, but I know other people like that are keeping way different calendars now. So,
well, now Jacob is doing this covenant calendar.
Yeah, so that's going to be way off now. We're going to be, I think Jacob's going to be like more than just a day or two from us now. He's going to be probably a month or so, or at least a couple of weeks.
Most of the people that Sadie and we know are maybe a day difference, usually, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Even like Sandra Keller, that they do the Zodakite calendar.
Yeah.
That would be weird if there were only a couple of days off, since that's such a hugely different calendar. I mean, that's not even.
Oh, the covenant one.
Yeah, the solar ones out there are like way different. I'd be shocked if they're only a day or two off with the solar calendars, because that's a whole different type of calendar. They're
There's also the group in Arizona with Brett and Bart. They got theirs as well, and I think they're on the land. There's a land where Yehuans can go and live. I think there's something you can buy, and get your spot, but you gotta go by, the rules of the land. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And they've established those.
Yeah.
And Bart and I think Bert might move there. I'm not sure. That's only 5 hours from here. That's nothing.
That's
We
not
could
bad.
do that drive and then find out what accommodations they have for us. I think if I could get one more year out of my husband, I can get him to drive the fifth wheel in case they only have tenting, because it's 5 hours ain't peanuts, I mean, it's nothing for us. And we can find out, it's not
She's
no big
all
deal.
bad now. She's all bad.
5 hours
Yeah.
ain't nothing. Hey, we've
But,
got a little river in it.
But yeah,
Ah,
we'll figure that out,
it's
sis.
funny.
We'll try to figure that out, and Yahuwah willing, we'll be able to try to try to keep the feast with you guys this year, Yahuwah willing. But
That'd be great. Well, we'll see
um,
how he leads us. You know
yeah.
what, Sadie? Didn't Opaz also have like incinerators? Didn't they have an incinerator?
They got a
You know
big,
those old-fashioned incinerators?
yeah, they got a real big one. Yeah,
Oh gosh, this way,
Yeah,
that way,
okay,
that way,
that's
that way.
what I
that way.
thought.
yeah, they got a real big one.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because I was thinking like for you, if we did it at your house,
Oh man.
I don't know, back in the day, they used to use those metal trash cans and burn everything in those big,
Yeah,
like a regular
yeah,
trash can, but made out of metal.
yeah. I'd have to get one. I mean, well, we better start planning because it's not that far off.
No,
Yeah.
it's not that
It's
far
not
off.
that far off. By the time we come to
Yeah.
an agreement, get tickets, or whatever, if
Mhm.
you find a place out there, if it's easier for us, I don't know if I could fly yet, but I'll give it a shot. If not, we can try and drive, right?
Yeah.
We'll get
Yeah.
get some.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that. Definitely off the record, we'll talk more about that and try
Yeah.
to figure out what we can do from now until then.
Oh, you're still
But
live.
yeah,
Oh,
I was just
darn.
trying to get
Oh,
back on topic here. That's all right,
darn,
sis.
you're
No problem.
live.
No problem.
Yeah.
No
I just
problem.
seen the little thing that said live.
No, it's all right. There's nothing that was said that's not, out in the open anyway. So
Okay.
I'm not worried about it.
No.
Jacob knows we love him and we're just on different viewpoints. That's all.
Calendars.
But
But you know what he used to go to Paul Nison's and they had the goat thing over there. They had somebody out there that they had the year-old goat that Jacob would slaughter.
yeah. So I wanted to go back to what Brother Joshua just read in Exodus 13, though. I think there was some important things for the chapter we didn't touch on, like the commandment Joseph gave for them to bury him. We see that Masha keeps that, basically promise that he asked his sons to bury him in the land. He did not want it to be buried in Egypt. So we see here that
What verse is that?
Exodus 13:19 says,
13.
and Masha took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had solemnly adjured the children of Yasharel, saying, Yahuwah will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones here with you. So they're about to bury him, I think, in Sukkot, it looks like.
Yeah, it says, and they departed from Sukkot and camped in Etham.
So I'm assuming somewhere near the land of Canaan, they're burying him there. And then it talks about Yahuwah's pillar of cloud to show them the way, a pillar of fire by night, and the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire by night before all the people. So that's another place I like to show people that say that Yahusha is not in the Old Testament. I believe Yahusha was the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire. I believe that's another form of him pre-incarnate is, Yahuwah is a consuming fire and all that. So again, we see that, he might not be mentioned by name in the Tanakh,
Right.
but many times he has titles. There's forms that he takes that we don't realize. And one of it is the pillar of fire by night, cloud by day. So we know that Yahuwah, what does it say in one verse in Isaiah? He dwells in darkness, dwells in a cloud of darkness. Go ahead, brother Yahusha.
So if Yahuwah is not Yahusha, if he can't take on multiple forms, then we have like more than 5 different characters appearing in scripture. We have the cloud of Yahusha, we have the Malak of Yahusha, we have
The right hand,
whole bunch of characters appearing.
wisdom. Yeah.
And
So you have like 5 or 10 different titles for Yahusha. If he's not Yahuwah, then you have this other person that's somehow getting a lot of this esteem that's separate from the Father. Then you have a problem with the book of Isaiah, because Yahuwah says, I share my esteem with no one. So if Yahusha is not him, you have a problem. Yeah.
I just see him as that wall that is sitting in that pillar of cloud. He is the powerful wall that is standing between the children of Israel and the Egyptians that are coming after them.
Oh yeah.
All protection.
Oh, the wall. What wasn't the wall actually the wall?
I don't mean a physical wall. honey.
Oh, okay. I'm getting confused. You're
I'm
confusing me here.
talking about
'Cause I'm-
him
A
being
wall of
between
fire?
them.
Yeah, because I'm thinking
No,
of
I'm
like
not talking
I'm
about
thinking of
physical
like
wall.
the Red Sea crossing, and he made the water into a wall. So
Right,
I'm
yeah.
getting a little confused here. I'm
No,
like,
he's
whoa, whoa, whoa.
the force that's
Yeah.
between the Egyptians and
Yeah.
the Israelites.
Yeah.
So Brother Doug, on that verse 21, the cloud by day and fire by night, would you say that that is another foreshadowing of Messiah?
Yeah. Yeah.
You could use that terminology, right? Because that's how I would say it to somebody.
Scripture says that he's our Elohim is an all-consuming fire.
Right.
The cloud could more refer to the fact that some parallel maybe to heaven, the fact he's coming with the clouds. We see Brit Hadashah talking about Yahusha's going to come on his return. He's coming with the clouds. Every eye will see him. So yeah, definitely there. I think definitely there's hints there that's talking about Yahusha. I want to see something in my Targums because sometimes they're a little bit more paraphrased. I want to see what they say for the pillar of cloud here. I'm just curious. Exodus 13:21. I'm just curious because sometimes it will say the word of Yahuwah. Let me see here. It's 13:21. And the splendor of Yahuwah, interesting, yeah. The esteem of Yahuwah went before them by day in the column of the cloud to lead them in the way, and at night in the column of the cloud removed behind them to darken on their pursuers behind them, but to be a column of fire to lighten the way before them, that they might go forward by day and by night. So what's interesting is that they call, instead of it saying Elohim or Yahuwah, it says the esteem of Yahuwah, which is very interesting because we know Yahusha is the exact, according to Paul in Colossians, he's the exact representation or the, what is it, the fullness of his esteem? What is that the phrase that's used in Colossians? Sure. The fullness of his esteem, or mistranslated as glory. So yeah, so whenever you see the esteem of Yahuwah, even in the Tanakh, that's another title for Yahusha. So I found that interesting. Oh, what's happening? You're losing me now? Oh boy, what's going on?
No, somebody had music on right now.
Oh, okay.
I actually like that song.
Let's see here. So, trying to see if we can fit in chapter 14 for today. I think I'll finish us off with chapter 14 in Exodus. Let's see here. So where's my Septuagint just at? Okay, there we go. Here we go. All right. So we're going to Exodus 14. I think this will be the last chapter for today. All right. Let's see here. So Exodus Shamut, chapter 14. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the sons of Yasharal, and when they turn back, let them camp opposite the village between Magdolos and between the sea opposite of Baal Zephon. Before them you shall camp by the sea, and Pharaoh will say to his people, these sons of Yasharal has closed in on, oh my bad. Then Pharaoh will say to his people, these sons of Yasharal are wandering in the land, for the wilderness has closed in on them. Now I will harden Pharaoh's heart. And I never understood this concept. The wilderness is closing in on them. What is
confusion?
Okay, because wilderness closing in, that makes it sound like, well, the earth is alive. I mean, but it makes it sound like
the way mine works.
it makes it sound like the wilderness is like alive or something. That's kind of interesting. Now I will harden Pharaoh's heart. So again, Yahuwah hardening or making Pharaoh obstinate. And he will pursue after them. I will be esteemed in Pharaoh. So right there, the purpose of Pharaoh. And all his army and all the Egyptians shall know that I am Yahuwah. And they did so. So just to make a little minor note here, Baal Zephon is supposedly, according to Judean tradition, whether it's true or not, that's where Pharaoh and his people would have went to worship Baal. Supposedly there would be like an idol of Baal there, and they're trying to have Baal like destroy the children of Israel. So Baal Zephon. So I just thought that was interesting. Verse 5, and it was reported to the king of the Egyptians that the people had escaped, and the heart of Pharaoh and his attendants was turned against the people, and they said, what is this we have done, sending away the sons of Yasharel, so they are not subject to us? So that's what they're really worried about, that they don't have slaves anymore. Then Pharaoh hitched up his chariots and led away all his people together with him. He took 600 choice chariots and all the cavalry of the Egyptians and third-ranked officers over all them, and Yahuwah hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued after the sons of Yasharal. Now the sons of Yasharal were leaving with a high hand. Interesting. And the Egyptians pursued after them and found them encamped by the sea, and all the cavalry and the chariots of Pharaoh and the horsemen and his army were opposite the village, opposite Baal Zephon. And Pharaoh advanced, and when they looked up, the sons of Yasharal saw with their eyes, and the Egyptians encamped behind them, and they were very afraid. Then sons of Yasharal cried out to Yahuwah, and they said to Moshe, because there were no graves in the land of Egypt, did you bring us out to put us to death in this wilderness? What is this you have done to us? Bring us out of Egypt. Was this not the matter that we told you in Egypt, saying, leave us alone in order that we might be subject to the Egyptians? For it was better for us to be subject to the Egyptians than to die. But Moshe said to the people, take courage, stand and see the salvation from Yahuwah that he will perform for you today. For as you have seen the Egyptians today, you shall not ever again see them time without end, forever, time without end. Yahuwah will fight for you and you will be quiet. I kind of like that there. I'm going to highlight there. You will be quiet.
Yeah.
Then Yahuwah said to Moshe, why are you crying out to me? Speak to the sons of Yasharal and let them break camp. And you raise your rod and stretch out your hand over the sea and break it apart. But the sons of Yasharal enter into the midst of the sea on what was dry. And look, I will harden, so for a third time, I will harden the heart of Pharaoh and all the Egyptians, and they will enter in after them, and I will be esteemed in Pharaoh and all his army and his chariots and his horses, and all the Egyptians shall know that I am Yahuwah. As I am being esteemed in Pharaoh and his chariots and his horses, then the angel of Yahuwah, we just talked about this, the messenger of Yahuwah, who was going before the camp of the sons of Yasharal, rose up and went behind. Now the pillar of cloud also rose up from before them and stood behind them. And it went in between the camp of the Egyptians and between the camp of Yasharal, and there was darkness and gloom. The night elapsed, and they did not mix together with one another during the whole night. But Moshe stretched out the hand over the sea, and Yahuwah drew off the sea by a strong south wind during the whole night, and he made the sea dry. And the water was divided, and the sons of Yasharal entered into the midst of the sea on dry ground, and the water became a wall for them on the right hand and a wall on the left. Then the Egyptians pursued, and all the cavalry of Pharaoh and the chariots and the riders went in after them into the midst of the sea. And it happened in the early morning watch. Here we go, watch. Interesting. That Yahuwah looked at the camp of the Egyptians. So Yahuwah is like his own watchman here. He doesn't have a watchman of Israel yet. You know, we're not at the book of Ezekiel yet. So Yahuwah is like watching over Yasharal. He's protecting them, and he's like, you know, making sure the Egyptians don't get near them. That Yahuwah looked at the camp of the Egyptians in the pillar of fire and the cloud, and he threw the camp of the Egyptians into disarray. He bound them together with the axles of their chariots and led them violently. And the Egyptians said, "Let us flee from Yasharal, for Yahuwah fights the Egyptians for them." So you see some of the Egyptians get it.
Mhm.
They're like, oh boy, Yahuwah's fighting for them. Then Yahuwah said to Moshe, "Stretch out your hand over the sea and let the water return and cover up the Egyptians, both the chariots and the riders." Now that's important. So the water is actually covering them. So Moshe stretched out the hand over the sea, and water returned near day to its place. Now the Egyptians fled under the water, and Yahuwah shook off the Egyptians in the middle of the sea. When the water had returned, it covered the chariots and riders, all the army of Pharaoh that had entered after them into the sea. Not even one of them remained. Key phrase there. So not one of them remained. But the sons of Yasharal went across dry ground in the midst of the sea, and the water was for them a wall on the right and the wall on the left. And Yahuwah rescued Yasharal in that day from the hand of the Egyptians, and Yasharal saw the Egyptians dead along the shore of the sea. So Yasharal saw the great hand, which things Yahuwah had done to the Egyptians, and the people feared Yahuwah and trusted Yahuwah and Moshe, his attendant. So very interesting here. So, yep, the sinking of the Egyptians. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
So with the enclosed by the wilderness, that word in the Greek, where am I? It said, Malaki Yahuwah. You know where it's at?
Yeah, let me see here. So, Migdol, verse 3, they wandered in the land. Yeah, here we go. So verse 3 is where it's at. And let's see here. What word are they using for shut in?
So the Greek, the Hebrew, you can't see that, but with the Greek, it says to shut up together and close, to shut up on all sides, shut up completely. So I think that to shut up on all sides makes the most sense, meaning that the wilderness was all around them, and the only way they had was to either go back towards the Egyptians that were behind them or to go forward to the Red Sea that was in front of them. So they really had no way of, there was nothing, there was no way out. Like the wilderness was enclosed around them.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's what I
I
see.
didn't know how to interpret it at first because I'm reminded of Revelations 12 where he says, he'll open the earth up to, swallow the water and all that. So, sometimes you see stuff where Yahuwah even kind of hints at that even the Eretz itself is alive. So I didn't know how to interpret that at first. I'm like, whoa, okay. Yeah, that's definitely a safer interpretation, the one you just mentioned. I hope not that you have trees alive and stuff like that. I hope not. But
the other thing would be so when we look in when we look in the Greek, I think all of us can agree that there's a difference between a Malach of Yahuwah versus the Malach of Yahuwah. A Malach of Yahuwah representing just any type of messenger versus the Malach of Yahuwah representing Yahusha. What's interesting though is when you look in the Hebrew, the word "the" is not there. It just literally says Malach Yahuwah. I think is extremely interesting because that points to Yahusha, almost entirely. You know what I mean?
yeah. And it's easier to see that in the Hebrew than the Greek because the Greek, I don't think the word "the" is like ever really there in the Greek. It's like added in. So it depends on how the translator is going to translate it, whether it'll say Agelos Theos or the Agelos Theos. There's never like a distinction in the Greek for some reason. Because I've even seen in the New Testament like that where it's really weird like that. So at least the Hebrew does kind of, like you said, it kind of makes it a lot stronger, makes it a lot more obvious that this is not just a regular messenger. I mean, you can kind of put it together if you start noticing there's a specific malach that Yahuwah keeps saying is going to be with them. I mean, we haven't gotten to it yet, but 10 chapters later, he talks about, I am sending a messenger before you. My name is on him, and all that. So we kind of see that later on. Okay, let me correct myself. The is actually there. Okay, so I'll correct myself. There is actually the word the in the Greek. Okay, because I notice a lot of the times it's not there and it will kind of be implied. Okay, so that's at least two. What I do know about the Malach Yahuwah concept is the rabbis have a distorted version of that concept. So the Mazarites would still believe in the messenger of Yahuwah, but they kind of distort it. They believe that the messenger of Yahuwah would be, Metatron, because in their own lore, they believe this Metatron character is the voice of God, the word. So they reject Yahusha as that person, and then they replace him with either Enoch or Michael as Metatron. So in their lore, they have no problem with it being a lesser Yahuwah, and as long as it's not this person known as Yahusha of Nazareth, that's where they disagree. And that's where they get this distorted replacement theology with Metatron, is that, it has to be just an angel. It has to be just, either Michael or even Enoch in their
As long as it agrees with what I believe. Then.
Yeah. So they're, because I've noticed that a lot in their texts, they'll replace the messenger of Yahuwah with, this Metatron guy. I think they call him Zagnugal or something like that in the Targums. So you see, like they're trying to replace Yahusha with him, which he's pretty much a counterfeit Yahusha in every way, shape, or form. he's called the voice of the creator. He's called this and that. I forget all the titles they give him. The fact that they give him the compound name of Yahuwah and Elohim says a lot. Kind of shows that they know that who Yahuwah Elohim actually is, but they don't want to accept that Yahusha's that person. So they replace him with Metatron and actually give Metatron that name, where they combine the Yah and the All together. It's like a compound name, like Ya'al. So they know that when it says Yahuwah Elohim, it's a distinguishment. They know that for a fact. They just don't want to accept Yahushua as that person in scripture. When in the Greek it says kurios and theos as a compound name. They don't want to, they don't want to accept that kurios and theos is actually the same person as the messenger of Yahuwah, aka Yahushua. They don't want to accept that. So yeah, but just to explain that, because I know there's a lot of people out there who will be like, oh yeah, but they believe in this other guy, and yeah. So it gets very confusing with the whole Kabbalistic nonsense. They try to substitute Yahusha and all that. So, but yeah, that's verse 19 is very clear that it's Yahusha in the cloud and in the pillar of fire. Or I think one of them is actually behind him. I think is actually what's going on. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the cloud's behind him, and all that. So that's kind of interesting. But when it makes it very clear is once you get to, I think it's Exodus 23, I believe, is when it gets clear who the messenger of Yahuwah is, because Yahuwah will literally say, my name is on him. And I just actually want to go to that real quick, show people what I'm talking about here. If you go to Exodus 23:21, I believe it is. Yeah. So starting with verse 20 in Exodus 23, it says, and behold, I send my messenger before your face, that he may keep you in the way. That's a little hint there. I am the way, the truth, the life. That he may bring you into the land which I have prepared for you. Then the next verse makes it very clear. Take heed to yourself and hearken to him. Disobey him not. What does John 3:36 say? He will not give away to you, for my name is on him. So, and we know Yahusha says in John 5:43, I have come in my Father's name. There will be one that comes in his own name. You will receive him and not me. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
You said Exodus 20, verse 23?
23, verse 20 to 21. Chapter 23, verse 20 to 21.
Okay.
Yeah. So this kind of explains who the messenger of Yahuwah is in Exodus 14 that was already following them. And he's saying, I'm going to send him before you to destroy these tribes. So I find that interesting. This is where a lot of us believers get the concept that he's the destroyer of the mighty ones. Because he's the one in front of Israel going into the land, about to destroy the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Girgashite, the Jebusite, all these Nephilim giants he's about to destroy if Israel obeys him. That's the biggest problem, is the obedience part. And he even tells them, don't disobey him. He's not going to give way to you. Don't do it. So if Israel would have obeyed him, you would have had none of those tribes surviving, because he's the one actually doing the work. Israel's not really doing anything. He's the one doing the work. Matter of fact, I believe Yahusha was the one that actually killed Goliath, gave the power, the force and strength behind that rock that actually killed the giant. So a lot of people say, oh, well, it was David that did it. Really? You think a rock's going to kill a giant? Really?
Definitely a force with David, definitely.
Yeah. And when I say force, I want to make a distinction here, because I know a lot of people, even me, grew up watching Star Wars. I'm not talking about that type of force.
Of course not.
I'm not talking about that. It's a lack of a better word. Yahusha is that strength, is that power behind David throwing the rock. Yahusha is the one that's making that rock kill Goliath, is what I'm saying. But no, I don't believe Yahuwah is a force. I do not believe that. I know there's some people out there that try to mix Star Wars theology with the Bible. You can't. Star Wars is Wiccan space wizardry. No, you can't mix that with the Bible. It's not gonna agree with the Bible. Go ahead, brother Yahusha. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to bring up. Okay. I think that's it, really, and I think that's it for our readings today. Go ahead, Mom.
Last week when we were starting to get into this whole thing, I had an old hymn come to my mind, and what I couldn't believe was how this hymn combines the redeeming blood of the Savior passing over the doorway. So it kind of brings both of them. The song is called "I Will Pass Over You." And it has this wonderful chorus of "when I see the blood, I will pass over you." And I just wanted to share that because it just popped into my head. And I've never seen a hymn that would bring together two different things and just beautifully bring it together in that way. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah. So, all right. Yeah, I think that's about it. Oh, just an interesting note that how I know that we're not the only ones that understand who the messenger of Yahuwah is. Sometimes the Targums will paraphrase the messenger of Yahuwah, Malak Yahuwah, as the word of Yahuwah. So we're not the only ones that understand that. It's talking about a specific entity. It's not talking about a regular messenger. So unfortunately, they have a lack of understanding who exactly is Malak Yahuwah, or the messenger of Yahuwah. Unfortunately, they have a misunderstanding and a bias understanding of who that exact entity is. But the fact of the matter is they did understand that the person known as the Dabar Yahuwah is the same person as Malak Yahuwah. So they did understand that. Unfortunately, they still couldn't see that's Yahusha, but that's a whole nother study for a whole nother day, why they wouldn't want to accept that. And that probably is because their ancestors, when they met the word of Yahuwah that came in flesh, didn't receive him, didn't accept him, didn't want to believe in him. So even though they had this concept that the word of Yahuwah, this person, pre-incarnate being, the word of Yahuwah was Yahuwah himself, when that Dabar Yahuwah came in human form, they did not want to receive him. And that's what you call scales over their eyes, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
How Yahuwah says the veil is over them. So anyway, all right. Well, if you didn't get anything from that, hopefully you guys got that. The main thing I wanted you guys to see today was definitely Yahuwah protects us no matter where we are. We started off with that today. And hopefully you started to see how the messenger of Yahuwah is Yahusha pre-incarnate, especially for those out there that are trying to reason and witness to people and not being able to use the New Testament, because a lot of people out there that you're witnessing to, especially Jews and Muslims, are not going to believe in the New Testament. So hopefully this is one of the ways you can witness to people out there, is showing them certain things that indicate that Yahusha's in the Tanakh, and he's known by many different titles, many different references: the pillar of fire, the pillar of cloud, the person known as wisdom in the book of Proverbs, the messenger of Yahuwah, Yahuwah Elohim. Even when you have coupled with Yahuwah and Elohim together, that's Yahusha. So hopefully you guys got something out of this study today, and I just want to say Shabbat Shalom, all of our brothers and sisters,
And Yahuwah willing, see you next time. Shalom. All right. Oh, go ahead, Brother Yahusha. I saw you got a physical hand up. No. All right. My bad.